Shannon Spake, she is our next guest, and she is a proud Navy brat. Her first words would have been censored for television. Yeah, I know, Aunt Shannon, I'm third generation Navy. It was a long time before it was not overheads and bulkheads and decks and hatchways. I know what you're talking about. Youngest of 3 children born to Luann and Dennis Pike, Baghdad, Arizona. She was born and raised at NES Lemoore. Let me tell you, that is out in the middle of nowhere, isn't it? Been there, done that. That was not her idea of seeing the world, but she was raised with love and a passion for education and a heart for her country and a profound respect for our Vietnam veterans. Shannon attended Northern Arizona University, where she graduated with a degree in journalism and met her best friend, now husband, Jamie Spake. They've been married for 20 years. No way, you're not old enough. You don't look old enough. And they have 2 beautiful children, a daughter, Alice, 12, and a son, Hayden, 9. Her childhood was not typical, not even for a military kid. She grew up spending winter breaks on a trap line, hunting fox, coyotes, mountain lions, shooting Coke cans from 30 paces at the age of 10. Her first collection was a box full of cottontails from actual rabbits. I had a few of those too. Did you ever do the pheasant hunting out there at Lemoore? You remember they used to do that? That was pretty phenomenal. Her family's idea of a summer vacation was to take a military airlift command and hop across the country in meetings in D.C., where over the years she had the honor of meeting 4 of our nation's presidents, President Reagan being his favorite. She was involved in church, 4-H, FFA, showing rabbits and pigs, and a varsity swimmer, beauty pageant contestant, and a closet drag racer. In all, a happy kid. But something has always been missing: her father. Shannon would like to introduce you to him now, Miss Shannon Spake.
Well, I like to think that it's, we live in the Bible Belt and everybody's at church right now. So, thank you for having me and allowing me to share a story that's really dear to me. I'm excited to be out here among all the aircraft and smell the jet fuel. There's nothing quite like that. And thank you for taking the time to be here to honor our Vietnam veterans. They're a genuine and special breed of American, and I'd like to introduce you to one that I hold dear in my heart. The story begins in Globe, Arizona in 1940, where Dennis Pike was born during the early war years of World War II. He's the youngest son of David and Gladys Pike. He came from very meager beginnings, living in a copper mining town which was booming during the war. His family then moved to Baghdad, Arizona, when Denny was 4 and his brother only 7. Lower. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Better? There, his mother set up house in a 10 by 12 tent with dirt floors. The houses weren't built until 2 years later. When Dennis was 7, he spotted an Air Force plane overhead, just as something had been tossed out of the cockpit. He waited excitedly as the white poof descended, and he caught it in his hands. It was a toy paratrooper, a toy for a young boy that didn't have very many of his own. But at that very instant, his passion for flying was ignited. At 14, Dennis discovered girls. He met Luann, the new girl from Paris, Texas. Dennis was 6 feet tall with 2 very large left feet. He made a fool of himself at every turn just to get her attention. Eventually, he won her over. He was well-rounded, athletic, a straight A student. He was recognized for his mastery of science and mathematics, and he was charming and funny, and she was smitten. June 7th of '59, they were married at the age of 18. They both attended ASU. Dennis studied aeronautical engineering and Luann studied nursing. They lived in an old converted railroad car. with a swamp cooler. It was tight quarters for the two of them, let alone the third that was on its way right after their first anniversary. Luann dropped out of college to care for their daughter Denise, and Dennis was very active in the ROTC program. He was well on his way to becoming an Air Force pilot. 2 years later, their only son Vincent was born, and by this time, Dennis served in the cadet colonel at the Air Force ROTC detachment during his senior year. In May of '65, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Air Force. Tragically, he failed his color deficiency test and was not allowed to fly. The Air Force grounded him and gave him a desk to fly, and it looked as though his dreams had come to an end before they even got off the ground. But Dennis wasn't about to give up. He studied every color blindness book available. Navy pilots couldn't be over 6'1", so he practiced compressing his spine in the mirror to hide his 6'2" frame. In November of '67, with the assistance of an Air Force Senior Master Sergeant and a Navy Admiral, Dennis Pike accepted an inter-service transfer to the Navy. He promptly began flight training school, and in April of '69 was awarded his aviator wings. With his dreams finally coming to fruition, the Navy transferred Dennis and his growing family to NAS Lemoore, a Navy jet training base affectionately referred to as the armpit of California. Not a very pretty place. But for the two small kids from Baghdad, Arizona, Lemoore was a metropolis. Dennis was flying high. He was written up twice for buzzing the tower just to wake the jokers up. But Dennis could fly as if the plane were a part of himself. One day during ops, he was flying an A4. While maneuvering, the jet began to plummet in a flat spin. The same type of spin that killed Goose in Top Gun. But Dennis stuck with it. He didn't eject. He pulled back hard on the stick, rolled, and then forced it in a nosedive, pulling it level just before hitting the deck. His squadron mates had never seen anything like it. Pike had truly found his calling, and shortly after that particular flight, a new clean pair of shorts. In August of '69, Dennis was pulled over for speeding in their MGB as he drove Luann to the hospital. He talked the officer into an escort instead of a ticket. At midnight, their youngest daughter was born. He named me Shannon Tanya Pike. STP, he wanted to be sure my initials were on all the boys' cars. Forward to December of '72, Dennis was now a member of the world-famous Golden Dragons, VA-192. He designed the Dragon that year that would be fixed on the tail of the planes. Pikes get news that the squadron would be leaving on the USS Kitty Hawk 3 months earlier than scheduled. Nixon was going to make an appearance in China for peace talks, and they wanted a much stronger nuclear presence. The new house they were planning would have to wait. On March 23rd of '72, the black sedans pulled into the driveway. No military spouse willingly opens the door in that situation. But Luann flat out refused. The men continued to knock, and a neighbor came to assist. Finally, neighbor held her up, and Luann was able to accept the news. And after all, it wasn't so bad. He's not dead, he's just missing. Pike was flying an A-7, the workhorse of Vietnam. The ship had lost 2 of the A-7s already due to engine failure. If they lost one more, all the A-7s would be pulled for maintenance. They were 750 hours over maintenance at this time. Dad was a lead aircraft in a formation of 4, and the target was the section of Ho Chi Minh Trail running south in southern Laos. After successfully completing their first bombing run, Pike reported engine vibrations and that he was having a compressor stall. His wingman observed white smoke trailing from the aircraft, and his CO requested him to turn and head towards the Kitty Hawk. His reply, negative. Too many vibrations, I'm losing power, I'm gonna have to leave it. Hope to see you guys later. He ejected from his crippled aircraft. The reports of what happened after are unclear. Dennis made lieutenant commander 3 weeks after that. That day began a whole new journey for the Pike family. Their Navy friends were ordered to keep their distance, and Mom lost her support group. Luann struggled with what to do next. But on June 7th, she received a bouquet of 12 yellow roses, handwritten card from Denny which read, "Happy 13th wedding anniversary to my yellow rose." As much as I'd love to be able to introduce this man to you today, I don't know him all that well myself. He never did come home. We waited, and our job as an MIA family was to keep hope alive. We just had to wait and see what the end of the war would bring. We knew they still had prisoners. And when the final last prisoners of war were released, we were by the television set, and Daddy wasn't one of them. Our mission still was to keep the faith, keep hope, and keep waiting. Life would go on. Our big summer vacations, for as long as I could remember, was the annual trip to Washington, D.C., courtesy of Military Coin Assist. It's a wonderful way to hopscotch across the country and see as many Air Force bases as possible. The trip could take 1 or 2 days. You just never knew. We could be on any number of flights. Sometimes we rode in jump seats. One time we rode in an HVAC plane full of burn victims. One time we were accidentally mistaken as the family of a missing admiral. That was a wonderful flight. But once we got to DC, we met with other families like our own. You see, we're members of a very elite organization, the National League of Families, a group that nobody wishes to be a member of. I've been a member since I was 4. I grew up listening to presidents and officials tell us what the latest news was regarding the political climate in the area and the possibilities of going to search for our loved ones. We never did go. We had no idea where to even begin. The National League of Families was formed by 4 very frustrated POW and MI wives who were often left in the dark and rarely given updates on their loved ones. They decided to make a stand. They made waves. They fought for the ear of those in power, and they made a difference. They were the role models my meek and quiet wife, Navy wife mother, had, and she wasn't very quiet for long after that. She could raise hell with the best of them. We picketed the White House when Carter declared all of our missing presumed killed in action, forcing these women into widowhood with no body to bury, no closure to begin again. It wasn't good enough then, and it's not good enough now. And they continue to fight. The only way Mom could get us to ever clean up our rooms was to say, "What would your father think if he walked through that door right now?" And I just knew he would walk through the door any day. When I graduated in 8th grade, I knew he'd be proud. I was pretty sure he'd show. Or the day I got busted for drag racing. I knew he'd be proud of that. Or the day I received my diploma. Or waited for him to walk me down the aisle. Or just maybe the day I made him a grandfather. But we wait without closure. Usually my mom's the one to do these speeches. She stood up and took the lead. She made sure I could change my oil and spark plugs and tires before I ever got to drive. She made sure we spent time with my dad's family. They taught me how to shoot, how to skin a fox, how to hunt for arrowheads, and how to ride a dirt bike. In May of last year, I participated in my very first Run for the Wall, an annual motorcycle rally from Ontario, California to Washington, D.C. that converges on the Vietnam Memorial. More riders are picked up as they make their way across country, and I picked up the ride in Grand Prairie. I didn't have a bike of my own, so I was privileged to ride with veteran riders, and I do mean riders who were very skilled on the road, that also happen to be veterans. Each and every one of them rides for a reason, and those reasons are personal and powerful. I participated in the missing man formation at the head of the pack. For about 120 miles, I was without music, cell phone, Kindle, or camera. At first, it really didn't sink in until my driver patted my leg. He pointed to the empty spot next to me and he said, "That's your dad riding right there next to you. Why don't you have a chat?" That was a profound moment for me. I cried, I laughed, I prayed, I thanked him for his sacrifice. I yelled at him for getting into a broken airplane. I laughed and I told him about his amazing grandkids. As we made our way to Washington, D.C., I was in awe of the outpouring of people who welcomed our pack, lined on overpasses and the streets of small-town USA. My heart was filled and my spirit refreshed. When we finally made it to the wall, Stoney, our leader, could hardly deliver his proclamation of mission accomplished over my sobs. I collapsed in front of my dad's name, which I've seen a dozen times. But this time, I was surrounded by an enormous family. My brothers and sisters who care, who honor our missing and dead in their own way. I can't help but feel that Dad was right there with me on that ride. Too many events have taken place since then for him not to have had a hand in it. You see, last June, my mom, my sister, and myself, we attended the National League of Families meeting. But this time, instead of nothing new in his file, we had a whole lot of new. It seemed they've located his ejection seat, numerous artifacts from the site, including a flight suit and the weathered rubber soles from his size 13 boots. We have stuff, lots of stuff. We waited years and years for something, anything, and now we have several items that are virtually certain to be his. But we don't have him. So we wait, knowing he made it to the ground in Laos, which was a foregone conclusion, but we still don't have bones or teeth, no proof of life or death. In February, I got my first motorcycle. I'm riding with my husband, who just got his own. We're enjoying learning a new hobby together and long country rides with family that I imagine are much like the ones my parents took all those years ago. We're planning on riding in the next year's Run for the Wall together. I can hardly wait to share this experience with him and my mother. In June, we'll make our way back to DC for the league meeting, but this time, we're going a week early to participate in the Father's Day washing of the wall. We'll be helping other sons and daughters and family members to honor our fathers by caring for the Vietnam Memorial. I'm excited to share this with my kids, to show them that we are all part of something bigger than just one family's story. We're warriors in our own way, keeping the faith, holding vigil for our missing. Through the continued efforts of the National League of Families, who have to re-educate every new president, every new casualty assistance officer, and every staffer. But the closure isn't just for this family. It's to stand as a testament to each and every single young serviceman or woman serving today or in the future, that no matter what their circumstances, God forbid they should be taken prisoner of war, or worse, fall behind enemy lines, body not recovered. We will not forsake them. We will not forget, and we will continue to fight for their return. Currently, there are 1,621 U.S. personnel missing and unaccounted for from the Vietnam War. Because of the efforts of the League, we continue to see stories in the news of our soldiers' repatriated remains coming from Korea, World War II, and Vietnam. New stories of our lost sons from wars past, making their way back to the soil they believed in enough to fight for. Visit the National League of Families website to learn more and how you can support these efforts. Gold Star families and MIA families share our common stories. We stick together and support each other through hard times. I want you all to know there is one group of people who have always been there for us, who always have a hug to give or a shoulder to cry on when needed. There are Vietnam veterans. You vets came back from Southeast Asia as brothers, and you are the most loyal family I've ever met. Loyal to each other, understanding each other in a way no one else truly can. You are loyal to those lost on the battlefield, ensuring they will never be forgotten. And I want to say thank you for embracing the families of the fallen as though we were your own. Thank you, veterans, for always being there for our families, for teaching me how to use power tools, and making sure I got to attend father-daughter dances with the other girls. I thank Harvey, who taught me how to fly a tail dragger. Thank you for taking the time to build a deck in my mom's backyard and teaching my brother how to throw a curveball. Thank you for coming home. Survivor's guilt is huge for those veterans that returned. Even my own Uncle Jim, he couldn't be hands-on with us. It was just too hard for him. So as time went on without Dad, we lost him too. But the greatest thing you can do for families like mine is share your memories, your stories, your photos, and laughter. Tell your tall tales of youth. You'd be amazed at just how healing that can be, and not just for the families. My mom always closes her speeches with her favorite quote, and I like it, so I'm going to steal it. Poor is the nation who has no heroes. Shameful is the nation who having them forgets. Thank you.